You're watching Lynn Community Television's 2017 Candidate Forum with candidates running for mayor of Lynn. Featuring Judith Flanagan Kennedy and Thomas McGee. Moderated by Sean Donahue.
Good evening and welcome to Lynn Community Television's mayoral debate between Mayor Judy Flanagan Kennedy and Senator Thomas McGee. I'm Bob Tucker, and the President of the Board of Directors of Lynn Community Television, and with me tonight is Richard Carpenter, the Treasurer of the Board of Directors. Also, I want to recognize the other board members, Mr. Michael Marks, Mr. Michael Sorelli, and Mr. Joe Corrett. Lynn Community Television is located at 181 Union Street right here in Lynn. We broadcast local community events and local government events. Membership is open to Lynn residents, and to any businesses that are in Lynn can become a member of Lynn Community Television. Tonight, I want to thank our dedicated staff, our hardworking staff, for putting together and organizing tonight's mayoral debate. And especially, I want to thank our candidates, Mayor Judy Flanagan Kennedy and Senator Tom McGee, for agreeing to participate in this evening's debate. And tonight's moderator is going to be Sean Donahue, a former Director of Operations at Lynn Community Television, will be moderating tonight's debate. And remember, Tuesday, November 7th, the most important thing to do on that day is go out and vote and make your voice heard. Now I want to turn this rest of the introductions over to Richard Carpenter, our Treasurer.
Thank you, Bob. Good evening, everyone. As Bob said, my name is Richard Carpenter, and I'm the Treasurer for Lynn Community Television. First off, I just want to say a few good words about our President, Bob Tucker, who has just provided great leadership for the Board of Directors at Lynn Community Television and establishing us as a great corporation here in the city of Lynn and getting all of this underway over the past 2 years. I also want to say a few great words about our staff, to David, to Mukala, Pedro. Thank you for everything you've done to set this up so far, and you guys have done a great job. The forums have been great. We've had some great candidates here. We've had some great discussion, and hopefully we've given the people at home in Lynn a chance to see all of our candidates up close and personal to make an informed decision on the 7th. Thanks to Mayor Kennedy. Thanks to Senator McGee for coming tonight. And just to repeat what Bob said, please remember, a week from tomorrow, Tuesday, November 7th, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., most importantly of all, please remember to vote. At this point, I'm going to turn the proceedings over to our moderator, Sean Donahue. Sean, it's great to have you back again. Sean left us a while back for employment with the school system. It's been a great move for him. Been the school's gain to our loss, no question about it, Sean. But thank you for coming back tonight to moderate these debates. You do a great job for us. So with that, I'm going to sit down and do the timekeeping. I give you Sean Donahue.
Thank you, Dick, and thank you for tuning in to the 2017 Mayoral Forums. I'm your moderator, Sean Donahue. Tonight, we're going to hear from all the candidates running for mayor of the City of Lynn on a variety of issues. These questions we will be asking were developed in collaboration with LCTV staff and the moderator of previous forums, former Mayor Al DiVirgilio. Questions will include some of the topics we've seen on social media that the public has shown interest in. The timekeeping for tonight will be held by Treasurer Richard Carpenter, and we ask that all candidates respect the timekeeping rules. The rules for tonight are as follows. Rule number 1, there will be no opening statements from the candidates. This is to allow for more questions from the candidates. Before the forum, we flipped a coin to decide that Mayor Kennedy will be the first to answer question 1. Senator McGee will be the first to answer question 2, then back to Mayor Kennedy for question 3, and so on until we get to question 10. The closing statements will be led by Senator McGee and followed by Mayor Kennedy. The timekeeper will be holding a yellow card when 30 seconds remain in the questioning of your allotted 2 minutes, and a red card when 10 seconds remains. If a candidate goes over the time, the moderator, myself, will interrupt and cut off the candidate. The candidates who do not respect the timekeeping rules will be disqualified from participating for the remainder of the forum. At the conclusion of questioning, each candidate will be allotted a 2-minute closing statement. The same timekeeping rules will apply for this. So let's get started with our first question. Mayor Kennedy, you will be the first one to answer this question. Number 1, what would you feel has been your greatest accomplishment during your time in public office? Your 2 minutes starts now.
I have a lot of accomplishments, I believe, over the last 8 years, and I will list them in my closing statement, but I think that the greatest achievement I was able to attain was it's kind of a toss-up between building the new Thurgood Marshall Middle School, which came in ahead of time, on budget, and has become a template, a model for schools, middle schools throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And the second greatest accomplishment was getting the old GE Factory of the Future, which had been vacant and just a fallow lot since the late 1980s, and having that sold off by GE and eventually turned into a new market basket that employs 381 people here in the city of Lynn. 86% of those people are residents of the city of Lynn. It gives great opportunity for people to be in a supportive work culture. Market Basket likes to hire and promote from within, and I think that is an opportunity that we really need to appreciate here in the city of Lynn. I can't remember the last time we brought in an employer who is bringing nearly 400 jobs into the city. So I hope people are enjoying both the new Market Basket and the new Thurgood Marshall Middle School.
Thank you. Senator McGee, the same question to you. Your 2 minutes starts now.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you, Dick and Bob, for and the Lynn Cable for putting this on. I'm excited to be here. I think, again, as I'd like to say two pieces that I look to with pride in terms of the work I've been able to do. Getting and securing the dollars to expand the North Shore Community College, and working to not only secure those dollars, because it's one thing to get the dollars into a bond, but more importantly, get it to be appropriate and have that school built. It creates the opportunity for people in this community and the surrounding communities to have access to higher education and affordable higher education that will lead them to create opportunity for themselves and their families. And it's really to see the building expanded and double in size, and really to see how it seamlessly fits together with the original building that was built in 1985. And the opportunity that that creates, I think, is really something that I feel proud about, and feel confident that it's going to continue to be something people can use and take advantage of for their futures. And in conjunction with that, because it's about creating opportunity and creating jobs, working closely with my colleague Bob Fennell when we were early in our legislative careers, we were able to get money to create and continue on the E-Team Machinist program. And in some ways it links to what's happening at the new North Shore Community College. That program has been over 20 years. It's created opportunity and training for over 500 people in this community that were looking for a different direction for their lives, looking for something that create a good job with good benefits. That program, again, has served over 500 people in this community. They've been able to get out and work in the machinist programs. Some of those have been able to get into the GE, working as jet engines mechanics. Both the North Shore Community College and the ability to see the E-Team Machinist Training Program create those opportunities in the community is something I'm really proud of and excited to continue to build on moving forward after this election. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator McGee. Senator McGee, we're going to lead you off with the second question, and that question is, would you consider building a new senior center, and how would you hope to fund it? Your 2 minutes starts now.
I think taking a look at creating a new senior center is something we as a community need to take a serious look at, recognizing the challenges we face with our current budget situation. But if you look at what's gone on in surrounding communities, we have a senior center, but I think there's an opportunity to build something that's really much more dynamic than what that opportunity is now down at Gliss. Whether it be Saugus, which find a way through their capital plan, through that capital funding, to create a really state-of-the-art senior center. Swampscott was able to do it by coordinating both the new high school at Swampscott High, which over a number of years had really been a challenge to make that happen. Part of the effort to create that high school was that they would include a senior center within the building itself and the backside of the high school. And by doing that, they were able to find the location, do it in a place that made sense, with parking, with access, and create, again, a state-of-the-art senior center that works for that community. And they thought a little bit outside the box. As part of that school development, it's kind of unique when you're looking at building new schools for a community that you would include a senior center like that. So I think we need to take a look at what are the options, what are the opportunities, where would it be located, and how can we, in terms of outside the box thinking, create the dollars and the investment needed to make that happen. So I think it's not clear where we would come up with the dollars directly today, but I think putting a plan in place and working with both people at that Council on Aging, CLIS, and people in this community to find a way to get a new senior center built really would be a huge benefit for this community. So as we talk about expanding and looking at a capital investment that we need to do in the city of Lynn related to city-owned buildings, I think a senior center needs to be part of that larger discussion. And I think that discussion will involve everyone in the community coming together to find a solution to create that great opportunity for the seniors in the city.
Thank you, Senator McGee. We will go to Mayor Kennedy for question 3. We're going to ask you to lead this one off.
Well, don't I get to answer question?
Yes, absolutely. You do get to answer question 2. So Mayor Kennedy, your 2 minutes starts now. Thank you.
I think it would be a great idea for the City of Lynn to have a new senior center. I've always been uncomfortable with the nexus between Greater Lynn Senior Services and the Lynn Senior Center. One is a private nonprofit organization, the other one is a public entity run through the Lynn Council on Aging, and there are questions of liability and so forth that make me a little bit leery of having that closeness between the two groups. Having said that, the Senior Center is about 40 years old. The Pickering Middle School has parts that are about 100 years old. In fact, we are currently operating 5 schools that are over 100 years old. We have 2 fire stations, Engine 7 in Pine Hill and Engine 9 on Tower Hill, that are over 100 years old, and they're starting to show their ages. So I think before we think about building a new senior center, we're going to have to look at building the new Pickering, and I'm sure that will come up, so I'll leave the discussion of that until a later question. And secondly, to build a new firehouse for West Lynn, combining those 2 engines, Engine 7 and Engine 9, and adding into it our dispatch center, because we currently rent out our dispatch center, and that costs tens of thousands of dollars a year. If we can incorporate it into the design of a new firehouse, then we'll be able to keep it in-house and save that money on the rentals. One of the problems with doing this, of course, is the money, even for the fire station. But in the bond that is next up on the city's agenda, we have several $100,000 in that bond dedicated to a planning study for a new firehouse for West Lynn that would house Engine 7 and Engine 9.
Wonderful. Thank you for the insight, Mayor Kennedy. Now we'll move on to question 3. Judy, you're going to lead this one off. Do you plan on reactivating the plans for new Pickering Junior High School upon taking office? And what would you like to see done with the old school building? Your 2 minutes starts now.
Am I psychic or what?
I guess so.
We have to build a new Pickering because it was designed as a junior high school. And the new trend in education is to have a middle school. It's a stepping stone between an elementary school and a high school. So there's no possible way to retrofit the Pickering as a middle school. Furthermore, we need room, so the Mass School Building Authority tells us, for 1,660 middle school students. So we cannot go back and ask for one middle school that would cost money that would be able to be dealt with within the city's existing debt service line item. We are going to have to face the reality that the MSBA is going to ask us to build 2 new middle schools. I plan on resubmitting to the MSBA when the window opens in January of 2018 to get back into the pipeline for a new Pickering Middle School. The locations, I'm going to take another look at all of the locations that we looked at before. I suspect that that may have been one of the biggest reasons for the failure of the vote. As far as putting the old Pickering Middle School into use, we would be able to do some renovations. I think it would be good either as an early childhood center, because we do have very limited pre-K, and we don't have enough room in our growing elementary schools even to fit some of the kindergartens. That's why we've had an early childhood center. So that building would definitely be put into reuse. The old part of the building is not going to be usable, but the newer addition to the building could still be used for school purposes, and that would be my intention.
All right, thank you very much. Senator McGee, same question to you. Your 2 minutes starts now.
Thank you. I think what we need, absolutely, we need to work right away and reconnect with the School Building Assistance Authority to start to have a broader discussion about replacing the Pickering Junior High School. I think there's broad-based recognition that the schools in the community are in really tough shape, and the Pickering is one of the worst in the Commonwealth. So one, we have to have a broader discussion with the community, recognizing that there were numerous locations that were talked about. How do we find a location and build that discussion to make people understand, one, that we need to make it happen, but two, more importantly, what is the input from the community that will allow us to look at some locations and build support to make it happen and make it a reality. So it's working with the School Building Authority to look at that. I would suggest that you know, there is an ability to take a look at the current Pickering Junior High School location. I've represented Marblehead. Marblehead's former high school, which was old and had real serious issues, was then retrofitted into a brand new state-of-the-art middle school. I was recently at the Aspire, the old O'Keefe School on Franklin Street. They took an old building that was ready to be ripped down, and they created an amazing state-of-the-art early intervention center right there on Franklin Street. So I'm not convinced that we can't take a look at both expanding and rehabbing what is currently at the Pickering site. But more importantly, it's not just that that's the only site. It's a question of where do we look throughout the community to find the right site to build the right kind of support throughout the community with public meetings so we can get the input we need from the citizens of the city, recognizing we need the schools, but more importantly, a plan that people can embrace, understand, and feel confident that that's the right location and that we can see the support to get us the dollars we need. And people need to remember, 80% of the funding comes from the state on any schools that we're going to build, so it's important we work closely with the School Building Assistance Authority and then take the experience they've had across the Commonwealth to help us with limited opportunities to build that site to find the right location for the City of Lynn.
Thank you, Senator McGee. We're going to have you lead off on the fourth question here. In April of this year, PFM recommended a 5-year analytical and budget forecasting model for better fiscal planning of the municipal budget. What are your thoughts on PFM's proposal, and what are your plans to address the deficit the city faces? Senator McGee, your 2 minutes starts now.
Thank you. If you look at that report, it was not an audit. It was a financial report that reflected on the current state of the city, and to understand where that report came from, it was through the compact that the city signed with the state. They got us $75,000 to bring in an outside firm to take a look at the state of the city's finances, recognizing we're at a substantial crisis stage in terms of our financial health of the City of Lynn. 2 different reports over the past year have reflected clearly that the City of Lynn is looking at potentially an $8.5+ million deficit, not only this year, but over the next 5 years. So I think what we need to do is expand on what that report reflected in terms of some of the challenges. One in particular is creating a full-time chief financial officer, which I think is a necessity moving forward. And the other report that, well, it was more than a report, it was the bonding agencies at the end of last year, recognizing the substantial deficit that the city faces, downgraded our bond rating. So there are 2 different indicators that the city is in real financial challenge. So the question is, how do we find out what the real deficit is, so we understand where we're at, and more importantly, find out how we get to the point of stabilizing our budget and move forward to get to where we need to be, recognizing that our expenses are outpacing our revenue. And I think we need to take a serious look and accept many of the report's recommendations on what we need to do, but more importantly, recognize that the report clearly identifies a structural deficit in our budget, that is clear. We've talked about what that number is. I think, I think $8 million, $8.5 million or more is a legitimate. That's reflective of all of the information they had related to the report they did. And again, with bond rating agencies saying the city's in trouble, this report reflecting on a substantial deficit moving forward over the next 5 years, we really need to take a serious look at it, do a full audit, and understand where we're at and make decisions to find solutions to the problem we face today.
Thank you, Senator McGee. Same question to you, Mayor Kennedy. Your 2 minutes starts now.
I'm going to be kind and say that the report was flawed. The report was fantastical, would be a better word to use to describe it. It was written in April of 2017, so you think they would have had a pretty good handle on what the projected deficit would be for the FY18, which was going to be only 2 months from then, starting on July 1st. And in fact, they projected $8.9 million. If you go to the city's budget, it is on the city's website. In fact, I'm the first mayor to post the city and the school budgets on the city's website. You'll see that we're looking at about a $4 million deficit this year. So they were off by more than a factor of 2 on that portion of the report. The other 2 parts of the report that I take some great exception to is that they said we would have to lay off 25 to 30 of the city's employees. I don't know where we would find 25 to 30 people to lay off. Our police are already down 15 to 20 people. Our firefighters are down about 10 people, and City Hall is running almost on a skeleton crew. So laying off 25 to 30 people is not very realistic. They also suggested that I hold the line and have no pay raises for city employees through FY22 to stabilize the biggest line item in the city's budget, which is employee salaries. Unfortunately, they didn't take into account that our public safety unions, the police department and the fire department, have a mechanism called the Joint Labor Management Conference, where if they're at a contract impasse, they can go to the JLMC, and the JLMC will hear both sides and make an award. And there has never been an award of 0% in the history of the JLMC. So that no pay raise till 2022 is impossible.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. Mayor Kennedy, you are going to lead off the 5th question. What do you think proper staffing levels for our police and fire departments should be, and what will you do to ensure they meet those levels? Your 2 minutes starts now.
They should both be at about 190 apiece for a city the size of Lynn. I mean, obviously more would be welcome, but in our present fiscal climate, we can't have more. What I have done about it is I have, first of all, stabilized it. We've had no layoffs in 8 years from any department, not just public safety. One of the things I've been asking the fire department to do is to bring some of our people who are currently on the day shift, for example, the arson investigator, who doesn't ride on a piece of equipment. It would help me greatly if I was able to use that person to come in and be one of the people who mans a fire engine or a fire truck. With respect to the police department, I have applied for a grant. The deadline was July 10th. I haven't heard anything about the outcome of the grant application yet, but if it's approved, we will have 9 new police officers in the city of Lynn. They will be paid for 75% in the first year, and gradually the city will assume the full function of paying for their entire salary and benefits. I feel comfortable doing that because we're coming out of 2 big expenses for the city of Lynn. The first of them is our net school spending payback, when the state decided to recalculate how we were arriving at our net school spending in FY14. We entered into a 4-year payback agreement with them. So that one's almost done. And second thing that's coming to be retired is the snow debt from February of 2015. Every community in Massachusetts was given 3 years to pay off the cost of their snow removal, which was about triple a normal winter. And we are in the 3rd of 3 years, this current fiscal year. So with that money freed up, we will be able to increase the number of police officers.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. Senator McGee, same question to you. Your 2 minutes starts now.
Thank you. I think the optimum number is 220 offices in the city of Lynn. Obviously, we're far from that. I would think the goal would be at least 200 offices. But again, reflecting on the real state of the financial crisis the city faces, and regardless of the recommendations related to that in the report that was done earlier this year, the reality is that there still is a deficit, whether it's 4 million, 8 million, whatever that number is, we're still facing that deficit. There haven't been any layoffs over the last 8 years, but the reality is through attrition, we continue to get on both in police and fire, DPW, so the staffing levels have continued to be gone down over the last several years. At the same time, where we've been draining all of our savings down to pretty much zero, not clear on what free cash will look like this year, there really is, like I said earlier, a crisis in terms of how we look at the financial state of the city right now. So there's no way that we can come in and say, oh, we're going to hire 9 officers today or tomorrow. And I think reflecting on grant, obviously the grants would come in and then the city has to find the dollars after a year or two to pay for those officers. I think the other piece is, are we ready to put officers into the police academy? So who are those officers going to be if that grant money is available? So the planning has to come in place. But for us to get to a point where we can get the staffing we need, not only on the police and fire, but on the city services as well, we need to stabilize our budget, be completely honest about where the deficit is, and to come up with a plan to stabilize our operation. And we do need, as I've been campaigning around the city, people are concerned about the limited public safety officers on the street, and they continue to voice those concerns. So it's stabilize the budget and find a way to get the dollars into the city and get revenues to come back into the city with economic development investment into the city to allow us to have the resources to start to put the staffing we need throughout the community, but clearly on public safety, back on the street. And that's going to be a challenge facing the financial crisis we have. But if we're open and honest with the citizens, we can get to where we need to be moving forward.
Thank you, Senator McGee. Senator McGee, we're going to ask you to lead off the 6th question, and coincidentally enough, it's about public safety. Public safety is a concern of many in the community. Many residents are worried about crime, violence, and drug use happening in the city. What does public safety mean to you, and what would you do to help curb each of these issues? Senator McGee, your time starts now.
And I think it directly relates back to the question before. I think what we need to do is start to reconnect with neighborhoods, recognizing the staffing levels we have in the city, and build crime watch opportunities throughout the community. I've been to Goldfish Pond several times over the last several months and have really seen the activity that they've been able to do, working with neighbors, improving that neighborhood, but more importantly, keeping an eye on what's happening in that neighborhood to create a safe and comfortable feeling for those that live in that area. And that's working closely with the members of the community. So it's building on that relationship between what's happening in Goldfish Pond, but more importantly, looking throughout the community and starting to reestablish those crime watches, I think, that were very successful in the 90s, recognizing that staffing is an issue right now, public safety, and I am hearing it across the community related to that. The other piece is looking for, there's been a substantial increase in dollars from the state level for opioid abuse. We have, through the legislature, working with my colleagues on the House side, created a $150,000 to come into a behavioral health unit, which does help go directly to the police department. They've been very successful in dealing with some of those issues throughout the community with those dollars, working off the Shannon grant money that allows us to address young people that are maybe going down a bad road, but creating programs that's about $200,000 a year that we do get into the city. But again, it's working within the neighborhoods, recognizing that we need to have a much more cohesive discussion between neighborhood to neighborhood, but just as importantly between City Hall, the police, and those in the neighborhoods throughout the city to work together to find a common ground to build not only crime watches, but community engagement, neighborhood engagement, so that we can address what has obviously been something that people continue to talk about around the city of Lynn.
Thank you, Senator McGee. Mayor Judy Flanagan Kennedy, we're going to go to you to answer the same question. Your 2 minutes starts now.
Well, I think that Senator McGee's voting record on criminal justice legislation sort of belies what you just heard. For example, in March of 2016, the senator supported a bill that took away what was an automatic suspension of a driver's license for drug dealers. Now, if we have an opioid epidemic in the city of Lynn, as it is throughout every city and town across the country, why on earth would we want to make it easier for drug dealers to be mobile and change the locations from which they deal drugs? It doesn't make sense to me. The senator also voted against funding for police vests at the state level. If we want to encourage people to become police officers here in the city, who would want to do that job without having some kind of protection? It doesn't make sense to me. And just this past week, there was a criminal justice reform legislation that was passed, and Senator McGee voted in favor of it, that states that the some people who are already in jail are going to have their sentences retroactively commuted to get out on the streets. That, to me, is not taking care of crime. That's enabling the crime. Now, I've done what I can do as far as keeping the force stable with the budget that we have. Under state law, we can only raise our taxes 2.5% a year. Our school budget, our mandated school budget, mandated by the state, has gone from $107 million in 2010 when I took office to $144 million today. That's approximately a 4% growth. Well, with 2.5% revenue rate increase and 4% growth in your expenses, how does that math add up? So I'm wanting to hear where things are going to be cut under Senator McGee's plan to increase the public safety numbers.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. We're going to have you lead off the 7th question, and that question is, the city's infrastructure needs to be addressed by a long-term capital budgeting process. Do you have a plan that will allow for school construction, police and fire equipment, park and playground maintenance, et cetera, and where would the funding come from? Your 2 minutes starts now.
Okay, we're currently on a 3-year replacement program with the fire department. So there had been, I think, 1 new piece of equipment in the 8 years prior to my taking office. We've now bought a new Tower 4, a new Ladder 1, a new Engine 3, a new ambulance, 2 police cars. But we have money set aside each year in the budget so that every 3 years we're getting a new piece of fire equipment. We recently spent $150,000 to buy new police vehicles. They are now leased so that we can do that on a 3-year rotating renewable basis as well. The schools, we have developed a plan of replacement. It starts with the Pickering. Once Pickering is completed, we move on to the Cobbett Elementary School, and once Cobbett is done, we move on to the Tracy Elementary School. We figure that's approximately a 25-year plan. With respect to the other part of the question, which was the infrastructure, yes. We've done a multi-million-dollar reconfiguration of Wyoma Square streets. We also rebuilt the Wyoma Square parking lot, modernizing it and more than doubling its capacity. We recently worked with Market Basket to get a $2 million rotary installed at the intersection of Route 107 and Federal Street. And we recently received a $4.8 million MassWorks grant to improve the infrastructure around Wheeler Street for the new YMCA, and a $1.5, I believe it is, $million grant to do the intersection of North Federal Street, Boston Street, and Marion Street to improve the traffic flow there. So I think we have done quite a bit on limited resources to get the infrastructure improvements here in the city of Lynn.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. And now to Senator McGee for his answer. Senator McGee,
Would you
repeat the question? Sure
ask
thing.
the question? I think,
The city's infrastructure needs to be addressed by a long-term capital budgeting process. Do you have a plan that will allow for school construction, police and fire equipment, park and playground maintenance, et cetera, and where would the funding come from? Your 2 minutes begins now.
Thank you. And I think the key point there is creating the right plan. And right now, I would argue the city doesn't have a real capital investment plan, both short-term and long-term, whether it be for schools, public buildings, the library, the GAR building, but just as importantly, a public plan to address the crumbling infrastructure related to the streets, the sidewalks, and really the dangerousness, because as I go around the community, people feel very unsafe in terms of pedestrians accessing almost anywhere in the community. Roads are being overrun with cars, both main roads and back roads. The congestion through the city is challenging our ability to move people through our city and create economic development and opportunity. And it is clear that we need to reach out and get more dollars. The Wyoma Square project was state funds through the TIP project. But again, that's only one project. I think there's only one more project that the city has that related to trying to get state and federal dollars. There is numerous opportunities for the city to put a plan together and work with the TIP, which is the Metropolitan Planning Organization, to create a plan to address what is, in some ways, some of the most dangerous intersections in the Commonwealth. We are not addressing those needs. We don't have a plan to go after those dollars that are available for communities like Lynn. We check off numerous boxes to allow us to be on the list to get those dollars and make them available, whether it be Gateway City, dangerous intersections, social justice community. There are dollars available. Surrounding communities like Beverly have $24 million in terms of projects that are available. So it's looking to create a plan both for short-term and long-term on our schools, recognizing our debt challenges we face, but when are those projects going to be implemented, and when are some of the plans that have some of our capital investments coming off the debt moving forward. So it's creating a plan, looking to the dollars the city isn't pursuing, and trying to work towards building a plan for all of those issues related to the city.
Thank you, Senator McGee. Senator McGee, you will lead off question 8. Question 8 is, list the new projects, potential projects, and any ongoing projects in Lynn which you are envisioning or have envisioned, and you will work to accomplish should you be elected. Your 2 minutes begins now.
I think the key piece is where do we see, what kind of an idea or what kind of vision do we have to create opportunity for what we have on our waterfront, and I think just as importantly seeing some of that opportunity grow in the downtown area. We have 300+ acres of waterfront development that, you know, we definitely can be jump-starting in a bigger way. The opportunity comes by sitting down with the players in the area, and I think this Amazon proposal has really been a positive thing for so many reasons. One, it allows us to think big outside the box. It highlights what we in Lynn have in terms of our resources, whether it be the waterfront, our downtown, our really vibrant neighborhoods. But it takes us to a different level. It's how are we thinking big? And the exciting piece of that is that number of the major landowners on the waterfront who at times have not had the same vision for a future for their area or for the downtown, for the waterfront, have come together and realized that this Amazon proposal allows us to look outside the box and put what I think is a great proposal on the table. We're close to Logan Airport. We have clear water access to the whole region, less than 25 minutes to the South Boston waterfront. So I think the key piece of what we need to do is looking to create a master plan that builds on the master plan we had 11 years ago. That has to be revisited, but it's working closely with the landowners in that area to help develop a plan, one, that they support because they own the land, two, that is part of the vision that we see for our community, and three, thinks in a larger way about what we can do, not just small ball, but big ball. And I think this Amazon proposal that's out on the table has allowed us to look outside the box in Lynn, look to that kind of a proposal, but more importantly, if that doesn't happen, or if Suffolk Downs is the place where that proposal ends up, that Lynn is really in a key location to take advantage of that investment that will be coming. So we have the jobs, we have the access points, we have the resources, and we have the people on the table, and I think thinking big is going to give us an opportunity to develop that waterfront in a way we all believe it can happen.
Thank you, Senator McGee. Mayor Flanagan Kennedy, we are going to go with you on question 8. You can answer that. Your time starts now.
Would you please?
Sure.
It was a complicated question.
Restate the question.
In future, I believe.
Absolutely. So list the new projects, potential new projects, ongoing projects that may have already started, that you will work to get accomplished should you be elected.
Okay. Thank you. I thought what I had already done. I'll save that for the closing. The YMCA is just getting underway. As I had stated earlier, the MassWorks grant came in at $4.8 million. They have raised privately and identified funding so that they can begin building a new state-of-the-art, I know that term is overused, but it will be a state-of-the-art YMCA, and will also allow them to keep the older building in place so that they'll be able to accommodate that many more people, students, programs there at that site. The Beacon Chevrolet project is something that will have a shovel in the ground, I believe, before the cold weather sets in. That's over 300 new units, and that one is going to become a reality in probably 2 years. We also have the Gear Plant project that is just in its early stages, but that's another piece of land that the GE has sold off under my leadership, where the proposal is to have up to 1,100 new units of residential housing down on the Linway. What I'd like to see, obviously I'd like to see Amazon Amazon got about 300 responses to its RFP. I know that Boston's proposal was well over 200 pages long. Ours was a 1 or 2 page letter. I'm not so sure that I mean, we have to dream big, don't get me wrong. I'd love to see Amazon bring us back for round 2 of consideration, but I'm trying to be a realist because that's what I do. It would be great if we could get it. What I would like to see realistically is a hotel. Lynn is a city of over 90,000 people, and we don't have a hotel on the Lynnway. I would love for developers to come in, look at our prime locations, and consider Lynn as the place to build a new hotel.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. Mayor Kennedy, you're going to lead off the 9th question. The 9th question is, the city of Lynn boasts a very diverse population. How do you plan to include all cultures in the decision-making process for the city now and in the future? Your 2 minutes begins now.
I think my record is extraordinary on my wanting to be inclusive and to have the city and City Hall reflect the diversity of our population. We are about 31 to 35% Latino. The numbers vary depending on the source that you get. So let's call it 1/3. I have tried to put members of boards and commissions from the Latino community into place to give these people from the Latino community a voice. Some of those people I've put onto the boards and commissions are Magnolia Contreras, who was one of my very first appointments to the EDIC board, Jimmy Gonzalez on the Parks Commission, Miguel Funes on the License Board. When I walked into City Hall in 2010, we had nobody in City Hall who spoke Spanish, if you can believe that. Today we have bilingual clerks at the clerk's office, at the election office, at the parking department, at the assessor's office, at ISD. And within our employees, I've also wanted to promote people from within different cultures to lead our departments. For example, my head of fire prevention is Israel Gonzalez, who is of Hispanic descent. I appointed the first district police chief of color, Steve Archer, in the Lynn Fire Department. And I had the first department head, Manny Alcantara, at the Department of Public Works under my watch. So I think I've done a really good job promoting the idea of diversity and advancement and inclusion here at City Hall and within the City of Lynn's boards and commissions. And I look forward to hearing some of the examples that Senator McGee has said on this issue as well.
Thank you. Senator McGee, same question to you. Your 2 minutes starts now.
Thank you. And I think as I've had a chance to campaign around the community and listen to people, the key piece is feeling open and welcoming when you come into City Hall. And I know that that is a key piece. And I think it's really engaging the community in a broader discussion. It's not just about what the outlook of the community looks like, but more importantly, do they feel connected to what's going on at City Hall? Do they feel that they can come to City Hall, whether it be a business leader that has issues with the English language that wants to come into City Hall, making sure that they feel welcome to City Hall, that there's language in terms of business, the business applications that they need, that they can understand it, and then they can really create those opportunities in the community. We are a diverse community, and if you go around this city, you notice that there's different neighborhoods working to build a better future. And I think the key piece is being open and available and having those ongoing discussions. So I will be welcoming business leaders, whether it be the North Shore Latino Business Association, parent-teacher groups, different business leaders throughout the community that have really made a difference in this community. And as I've walked around many areas of the downtown and got a chance to meet those leaders who have been working and putting businesses together for 15 to 20 years in the community, they're looking for a more open and available City Hall so that they know that they can work together with the elected officials in the community to ensure that their issues related to how they develop their business, hire their employees, but just as importantly, understand that they feel comfortable and confident being part of this community, working closely with people in City Hall is a part of the future. So I will continue to build on those relationships that I've developed throughout my career in the legislature, as well as working through the community during this campaign. And I think there's an opportunity to really build a much more vibrant and coherent discussion and connection between leaders in all of the different minority communities in the city and those that work in City Hall.
Thank you, Senator McGee. So it just got word that our candidates have done such a great job at keeping their times. We're actually going to be able to get 12 questions in. So Senator McGee, you're going to lead off answering for question 10. Question 10 is, in the past year, Market Basket, apartments on the waterfront in downtown, and several new restaurants have opened or are in the middle of construction in Lynn. What do you hope to do to attract more developers to the city? Senator McGee, your time starts now.
Thank you. Well, I think we talked about a little bit earlier. It's building on where we've gone, but more importantly, I think putting together a broader plan. And for us to develop that opportunity, there's been a number of suggestions. I think 2 different reports this year that talked about creating a planning department in the city so that we can build on the real success that we've seen. But more importantly, we have a long way to go to get to where I think we really could go related to the opportunities. And that means creating a plan that works for the city of Lynn. The development that we're talking about, we've got market rate housing coming in terms of some of those plans for the future, but we really need to look at it as creating jobs and creating commercial opportunities that not only create jobs and come into the community, but are going to be taxpayers and allow us to build the revenue we need. As part of those developments, there have been different tax incentives that have been given to many of those businesses. I think we need to move past that and recognize that we have a lot more to offer just on what we have both for the people that live in our community, the opportunity for the resources that are here, the developing restaurant scene and arts and cultural district in the downtown. That's an area where I think we really can develop and build on. The Beyond Walls program that really brought a highlight to downtown, both for the arts, the culture, but the opportunity to get people down to get into the Lynn Museum, utilize some of the restaurants that are downtown, and bring people that hadn't been downtown before was really a kind of a real opportunity for us to highlight what we have in a unique way downtown. So I really think the Arts and Cultural District is one of the key pieces of our opportunity to move forward. And again, I think putting a plan in place that allows us to create jobs, commercial opportunity, and other options on the waterfront is what we need to look at moving forward.
Thank you, Senator McGee. Mayor Kennedy, same question to you. Your 2 minutes starts now.
Okay, as a practical matter, we need to ease up on some of the red tape that we have currently by way of the zoning. We don't have as much zoning as of right as I would like to see. And I know that when developers come into a new community, one of the first things they will evaluate is how much of a hassle is it going to be for them to realize their vision for their piece of property. So lightening up on the zoning and having more as-of-right building allowed would be a good first step. With respect to what we've already done, when I first got into office, we started putting together a coalition of dozens of interested groups, mostly from the downtown, in order to apply for an Arts and Culture District designation from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. That first year, 5 designations were awarded, and I'm proud to say that Lynn was one of the inaugural 5, and we continue to have that designation. We're also the first community, for the first time under my administration, we have a full-time Arts and Cultural District Director, and that has proven to be one of the real drivers of bringing jobs and economy to the downtown. When I started to boost the number of shows at the Lynn Auditorium from 2 to 4 a year in 2010, even though it had been renovated in 2005, they were still only using it 4 times a year. So I got the air conditioning, I got the Ticketmaster contract, I got the professional booking agent, and all of a sudden, 2,000 people were coming to our shows. That made restaurants want to locate here. Rossetti expanded to Lynn. R.F. O'Sullivan expanded to Lynn. I hope to continue that ripple effect. And finally, we've reached out to the media. We've been featured on Chronicle. Everybody can look it up. Most recently was about a week ago on the Beyond Walls exhibit. It puts Lynn in a good light, makes us attractive to businesses who want to come here.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. Mayor Kennedy, we're going to have you lead off on the 11th question here. The 11th question is, what is your opinion on charter schools operating in the city of Lynn? Your 2 minutes starts now.
I'm in favor of charter schools. I do not like the way they are currently funded because it takes, I think, a disproportionate amount of money away from the public schools. Having said that, When people have a certain amount of money, they have choice in where they send their children to school. They can go to private schools, they can go to parochial schools, or they can go to public schools. And as a mother of 2 children, I thought that it was best for my children to experience a microcosm of the world by going right here in Lynn to the public schools, and I am the only candidate on this stage that made that choice, to have my children get the exposure to the diverse cultures and communities that are here, and it's such a blessing to have here, to give them a leg up on facing the real world once they get out of college. The charter schools provide that opportunity for people without the means to pay for a private education. And I'd like to see them expand. I know that doesn't make me very popular amongst a lot of the politicians in the city. It's certainly a minority point of view on the issue of charter schools, but if people with money can have a choice, why can't the people that don't have that luxury of money have the same choice of what is the best educational environment for their child?
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. And now, Senator McGee, we're going to ask the same question to you. Your 2 minutes starts now.
Thank you. And I'm opposed to expanding charter schools, and that's been a position I've held probably during my career in the legislature. And we need to go back to understand what the charter school plan was when it was first established. It was to create a model so that the public schools could take advantage of what the charter schools example was and bring that model back into the public schools. The charter schools, regardless, first of all, the state and the city supported that, put a cap on charter schools. There was an election last year, and overwhelmingly across the Commonwealth, people said that we should have a cap on charter schools. Lynn voted again in that direction. The funding is definitely a substantial issue. When you're looking at the funding that goes to the charter schools, it comes directly out of the school budget for the city of Lynn. The funding formula is a substantial hardship on any community that has charter schools within that community. Those dollars should be funded directly from the state to fund the charter schools that are in place. That funding formula is really creating a huge problem for the city of Lynn in terms of how we're able to fund our schools. The reality is that regardless of how much expansion we have in the city of Lynn, we could be up to 15% or 20%, whatever the cap is related to Lynn in terms of charter schools. That means there's between 80 and 85% of the students in the city of Lynn that won't have those access points. And when the resources come in, particularly when you look at the different schools that got up to level 4 in the city of Lynn, the Harrington School is one of them. When the resources came in from the state because they were at that level, then they went back. They actually raised up their value up to level 1 schools. The reality is giving the resources, the opportunity to every student in the Commonwealth, regardless of what school you're in, making sure that those dollars are available and accessing the kind of full day, including after-school programming, arts, phys ed, and all the other things that make a difference. The reality is every student deserves that opportunity, and charter schools draw the dollars away, the way it's set up right now, from the students in Lynn that are looking for that opportunity in the public schools.
Thank you, Senator McGee. Senator McGee, we're going to have you lead off our 12th and final question before we go into closings. So we know each of you guys have accomplished a lot in your careers. Today, we're concerned about what you're going to do over the next 4 years. What are your goals you're setting here for yourself tonight that you wish to accomplish for the people of Lynn if elected this term? Your 2 minutes begins now.
I think, again, getting back to the first goal related to what we need to do is I think we need to do a full audit so we understand the financial situation of the city. That really challenges us in any way of what we're going to do moving forward. What is the current state of our budget? How do we get to the point where we're not outspending our revenues? How do we build those revenues? So first of all, we need a baseline about where we're at and what we're going to do. That then will allow us to make some decisions about moving forward. But I think we need to take a look at whether it be in the downtown area or on the waterfront, creating a climate to allow opportunity and investment to happen across the board. Create a planning department, or working to create a planning department that allows us to have the plan that we create and the vision that we understand for our city is something that we can then make happen, because we need someone that can complete the plan that we believe is the right plan moving forward. Cities that are successful, whether it be Lowell, Peabody, Hingham, you look at the most successful communities that have been able to create that opportunity and development, they have a planning department in place or a planning team in place that allows that to happen. Recognizing we don't have a lot of dollars, the thing is, how do we think outside the box, work, whether it be with mass development or others, to bring into the city those kind of skilled, talented people that allow us to create that plan moving forward. And I think building on our master plan and revisiting the master plan for our waterfront to take advantage of or to reflect on the changes that have happened over the last 11 years. What is the plan that makes sense for today moving forward, and looking to build relationships and partnerships with leaders throughout this region to develop those plans in conjunction with what we see as our vision, because Lynn can't just do it on its own. It's really a plan that recognizes a cooperation throughout the region, and I think we can build our the city of Lynn to be the leader it has been in the past as the gateway city to the North Shore.
Thank you, Senator McGee. Mayor Kennedy, same question to you. Your 2 minutes begins now.
Well, the two structures that I would like to see developed in the next 4 years would be the firehouse for West Lynn, as I mentioned earlier, as well as the new Pickering Middle School. But I also want to continue to advocate for our city, because we end up having a lot of social issues placed upon us. And you know, we're a welcoming city. We should be a welcoming city. We always have been, and I think we always will be. But there are certain mandates that work against us in that regard. One of those is the net school spending formula, because with every student we get in, our number increases as far as what we have to give to the schools. If that child is an English language learner, an additional amount is placed on what has to be given to the schools. And if that child has special needs, yet another premium is placed on what we have to give to the schools. That's resulted in the school budget going up from $107 to $144 million, and we cannot sustain that. That has to be changed, and it has to be changed at the state legislative level. Additionally, I would be continuing to advocate for more equitable settlement of newcomers, and not just having every newcomer come into the city of Lynn. We got 2,600 students in over the last 7 years. That's a net number, that's not a gross number. And I look around at other communities where the resettlement numbers might be 1 family, 4 families, and the city of Lynn wants to take care of its own people. And we don't get the federal dollars to follow the resettlement, and as a result, we end up spending more in public safety, education, trash pickup, you name it, and we need to have other communities sharing that burden, and I'll continue to push for that.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. Now is the point of the program. We will be moving on to the closing statements. Senator McGee, you will be the first to lead off for your closing statement. Your 2 minutes starts now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And again, I want to thank Lynn Cable for putting this debate on tonight. We've had a chance over the last 2 weeks, and I'm sure the mayor would reflect that, to have numerous forums where we have a chance to talk about the future of the community and how important this election is, the direction of the city. So one, I would ask on November 7th for your vote as you look forward to moving the city forward. But just as importantly, I think all of the citizens in the community need to be engaged in this discussion, be engaged in this election, not only in the mayor's race, but there are a lot of candidates that have been out there talking about the important things throughout the neighborhoods. People have been knocking on doors throughout the city. This is the time that it's your chance to come in and be involved, vote in this election, be a part of this election. In the past, we've had smaller turnouts. It's important that people in the city get together and be part of this process. The election is where we have a chance to develop the direction of the city, whether it be electing candidates for mayor, electing candidates for school committee, or the council at large. Please be a part of this process. Be engaged over the last week. Take a look at the candidates, take a look at the issues, but more importantly, be a part of the discussion both for this election, but just as importantly, when the election is over, we need to ensure that we as a community come together and talk about the things that we understand are important for our future and for our children's future. It's an opportunity for all of us to come together and make a better tomorrow for all of us. So please get out and vote. Again, I ask for your vote on November 7th, but just as importantly, with your friends and family, be a part of the process, make this city the best it can be, and that means all of us together moving the city forward together. Thank you for listening tonight, and again, a week from tomorrow, November 7th, is Election Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator McGee. Now we'll move on to Mayor Kennedy for her closing statement. Your 2 minutes begins now.
Thank you. Thank you to LCTV and to the viewing audience tonight. This is the 5th of these debates I've had with Senator McGee, and it has been a pleasure. It's been a real opportunity for us to highlight where we agree and where we disagree on the direction of the city. I think in 8 years I've accomplished a lot. I've already talked about the middle school, the market basket. I brought kettle cuisine to Lynn, which brought about 250 jobs to the Lynnway. Talked about the auditorium, the new Wyoming Square streets, the new Wyoming Square parking lot, the reverse 911 emergency notification system. I brought in the free large trash and single stream recycling toters to every resident. Our recycling rate has tripled since 2010. New restaurants, Rossetti, R.F. O'Sullivan's, Demici's, Land of a Thousand Hills, all the fire department's equipment that's been purchased. I've installed ball field lights at many of Lynn's parks. I've installed splash pads at Flax Pond, Kylie, Neptune Boulevard parks. I erected Lynn's first wind turbine, turned 23 Central Square into the Vault with 40 new market rate housing units and 2 new restaurants downtown. I stabilized the residential tax rate, presided over a 23% increase in home values from 2010 to present, put all major city contracts out for competitive bid, have had no layoffs in city employees in 8 years, and we achieved functional zero for the number of homeless veterans in Lynn, the first city in Massachusetts to do so. I actually have an 8-page list of accomplishments you can get by simply calling 599-JUDY. That's 599-5839. Leave your contact information, or you can go to my Facebook page, Re-elect Judy Kennedy Mayor. And I appreciate everybody listening. I ask for your vote on November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. Thank you, Senator McGee. Well, that is going to conclude the LCTV series of candidate forums. We understand that we can't get to all of the topics everybody wants to hear about, so we encourage you to visit lyntv.org/election, where we've uploaded our forums, other forums we've been able to film. You can also find candidate profiles and more information about the candidates in the election process. As a reminder, we'll be holding a live election results show on Tuesday, November 7th from 8 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. The panelists will offer their opinion on the races and reveal the results as soon as we get them. I want to say thank you for tuning in. Thank you to our candidates and good luck to them as well. Thanks to the crew for stepping in and filming this show, and thanks for watching. From the studio here at Lynn Community Television, I'm Sean Donahue, wishing you all the best. So that